Hi, I'm Bonnie Morales from Kachka Restaurant, and you're listening to Ingredient Insiders.
This is Ingredient Insiders. I'm John Magazzino.
And I'm Andrea Parkins.
On each episode of Ingredient Insiders, we'll be talking with chefs and authors about their favorite ingredients.
We then talk to the producer of that ingredient. We learn about its history, how it's made, and why chefs love using that ingredient in their kitchen.
Portlandia, Andrea. Here we are in Portland, Oregon.
Love it here, John.
One of your favorite towns.
Yes.
What do you love about Portland again? Tell me. I know you've told me before.
But I mean, I love it. I love the food scene. I love how unapologetically themselves they are.
Yes.
I love the Japanese gardens here.
Yes.
I love the huge rose garden that's absolutely stunning that you can just walk through.
Uh-huh.
I love the kind of city nature vibe that they have going on.
Yes. You're very cultured. I come to Portland and I just eat.
No, I like to go and see the things.
Yeah, no, I'm hearing that.
Yeah.
I have taken a hike in the woods here, the impassable wilderness. It is beautiful. Yeah, Portland is such a great city. It's got such a diverse food community. It has a lot of different cultural food experiences. It's not unusual to find very specific African type cuisine. Vietnamese, all the Asian type foods are well represented here. And then you've got great pizza.
Absolutely. When I was here 5 years ago for the first time, I had traveled on a Chef's Warehouse trip and made a very good friend, one of our most amazing sales reps, Brooke Crandell.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I want you to show me your Portland. Mm-hmm. I want you to take me to your favorite restaurant. I don't care where we're going. And she said, we have to go to Kachka.
Bonnie Morales' Kachka?
Bonnie Morales' Kachka.
Talk to me.
So I was like, sounds great. And I go online on my phone, I'm looking up the menu and I'm like, wow, this is Russian food.
Yeah.
I was not expecting that. You know, we go, we sit down, and we had the most incredible meal.
Did you drink vodka?
Oh, not only did I drink vodka, I did a vodka flight.
Ooh.
So you can have different kinds. They're also infusing vodkas with horseradish, which goes, amazing with caviar. And I just love vodka, so It was amazing. It was so
now
good.
I'm speaking Russian with you. Da.
My favorite part of the meal was the pelmeni and the vareniki, which are, I'm going to put them in the pierogi family, but kind of small dumplings, either filled with meat or a potato kind of sour cream mixture. They were the best. Amazing.
So Bonnie Morales at Kachka, this place you're talking about, she's very celebrated. She's a big deal in Portland. And it's interesting. She wants to talk about charcoal.
Yeah, when she said
really
that, what did you think?
Wood charcoal. I thought that was really cool because I was like, it's not just something, most people, when you say what ingredient do you want to talk about, they name a food.
Right.
But an ingredient that's very important to her cooking is not just charcoal, but Thaan Charcoal, which is this Thai-inspired hardwood charcoal. So little logs that burn at a very high temperature, and they really do make a tremendous difference when you're cooking any kind of protein or vegetable for that matter.
Yeah, it kind of provides an even cooking field. You lay out these briquettes or logs.
Yeah.
And again, they don't have a lot of soot or give off a lot of waste. Sometimes it can be very messy handling charcoal. And this product does an incredible job with that.
Yeah. I have charcoal envy. I have a gas grill at home. It's a beautiful number from Weber, and it's very convenient.
Only some people are judging you.
Yeah, no. I'm judging myself because you got to weigh the convenience factor versus the starting a wood fire. Because listen, I can go, I can show up home 8:00 at night, go outside, hit a button, and within a couple minutes, I've got a 500 degree, 600 degree. Grill going.
Charcoal's a process.
Gas fire. Charcoal is a process, but I will say that it is worth its weight in gold to use hardwood charcoal because there is an element of flavor that is imparted by the wood that is incomparable. And there's a level of temperature that you can attain with these hardwood charcoals that goes way higher than most gas grills will ever go.
So you get that really nice char?
Yeah, you can just get great high temperature to sear meats and char, create crusts and things like that, which you can do on a gas grill. But then also when the fat from the protein, again, I'm talking about grilling meats, when that hits the charcoal and the little bit of smoke comes up, it does impart a flavor that cannot, in my opinion, be duplicated
100%.
by gas.
Yeah. When she said charcoal, the first thing I thought was open fire cooking.
Yeah.
And how it's something that's how we kind of started, right? In this world is, cooking over open flame. And so I was really excited to have this conversation and, really excited to talk with Toby Roberts from Thaan Charcoal to learn kind of how did this come to be and why is this important to the culinary industry and to him?
Yeah, more and more restaurants today are using these type of hardwood charcoals for their grilling indoors. And so this is going to be a great conversation. Cannot wait to speak with Bonnie and the folks at Thaan Charcoal.
This episode is in partnership with The Chef's Warehouse and produced by Gotham Production Studios.
We have been doing an amazing West Coast tour. Andrew and I are both New Yorkers, but we have been recording. We were in California all of last week. Great chefs, amazing legends. And now we're in Portland with another Portland legend.
Bonnie Morales.
Hi.
Kachka restaurant. Yeah, usually we warm up and say, how do we pronounce your name? But it's Bonnie Morales at Kachka.
Brooke Crandell, one of our amazing sales reps a few years ago, I was visiting her and I only had one night. And I said, take me where you think we should go. And she took me here and I absolutely fell in love with the space is beautiful. The food, it's so comforting and it reminded me, just home and comfort. So I knew when we decided we were doing this West Coast tour, I called her first and I'm like, I really want to talk to Bonnie.
And it's Russian food from Bonnie Morales, but it's not a very Russian name.
So, I want to correct you. It's not Russian food. My parents immigrated from the Soviet Union. And so Russia didn't really exist in the same way. And the physical geographic place they came from, Belarus, didn't exist at all. So we're not Belarusian, not Russian. My family's passports had Jewish stamped on it. So it's a whole complicated thing. Anytime we start talking about what the restaurant is, people call us Russian, but we actually call ourselves post-Soviet.
Post-Soviet.
Which is hard for folks to wrap their brains around, but it's a real thing.
I love it. And you've got a picture of
Gorbachev.
Yeah, Gorby. I don't know whether to call him Vladimir Gorbachev or Gorby, who just passed away last week, sadly.
He did. Most of our staff have no idea who that is.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I'm old, so I know.
Me too.
Tell us a little bit about how the restaurant came to be.
It's my husband's fault. We were, when we were dating, we were both restaurant folks. We met in restaurants. All we do is talk about food. And so when we first started dating, obviously you have to take your boyfriend home to your parents, right? But for me, that was always came with a disclaimer for friends and significant others of you might want to eat first. You might not like the food very much. It might be a little weird. I'm sorry. So I gave him that disclaimer. But afterwards, we were still in the parking or in the driveway of my parents' house, and he was just like, Bonnie, that was amazing. I have no idea what most of that was, but I need to do that again.
Oh, a keeper.
I know. And I was like, my mom's not even here, so it's not even him like buttering her up. He loved it, and it made me fall in love with it. I was always really embarrassed, obviously, of being an immigrant's kid, of the food at home, and all I wanted was stovetop stuffing, and nothing to do with herring or boiled beef tongue or any of those things. And but through his eyes, I sort of noticed or realized that it was really just me having some insecurities around it, and that if I took that away and just took it at face value, that this food was incredible. And I felt like invigorated to do something about that. And that we kind of together felt like we had to share that with other people because honestly, the food has a bit of a PR problem. And so it really wasn't getting a lot of representation. Really, in this country, it continues to have an issue to this day, largely due to political issues. So yeah, that's our mission is to cook delicious food for people.
I was thinking on the way in here as I was thinking about the cuisine, even in New York, a great restaurant city. Yes, you can go to Brighton Beach and you can go to these neighborhoods where there's a Russian population or Eastern European population. But in New York, there was one restaurant called the Russian Tea Room, which wasn't a Russian restaurant. I mean, it was a place people went for caviar and vodka and champagne, maybe, and certain touches, if you will, of what American people think is that type of cuisine.
Yeah.
So it's looking at your menu here is really beautiful, like homespun almost kind of dishes.
Well, yeah, the thing is that Russian tea room, I think, was born of what a Russian emigre thought Americans would want to eat, and also what a Russian person would eat out at a restaurant. And so if you, back when Russian tea room opened decades ago, a Russian eating in Moscow at a restaurant, which was, by the way, a very rare occurrence in that time period, would have eaten more continental dishes.
Mm-hmm.
And so it is what they thought was appropriate for a restaurant. And what, cabbage rolls are what you have at home. That's peasant food. Why would I eat that? Why would I go to a restaurant to eat that? In fact, people who are from that part of the world often will come here and be like, they'll order anything but the golubtse, the cabbage rolls, because they're like, well, that's my mom makes that at home. Why yours can't possibly be worth eating out for? But it's, to me, those very same dishes that are the ones that will bring diners to tears because it evokes memories of lost loved ones or a distant past. And so those are the moments that we actually love the most.
I love that. I have so many questions now. Okay.
We haven't even talked about what the ingredient is.
Well, wait, I didn't want to go there yet.
We're not even going to tell?
No, we're going to talk
Okay.
about charcoal, right?
We're going to talk about charcoal, a specific kind of charcoal, though.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Now you can go on. Ask your questions.
Because there's not a large number. I mean, where do you learn to do this? Did you grow up in Portland?
No, the Chicago suburbs.
Okay, so you're in Chicago.
But did you have a food background? Like you and your boyfriend are in the driveway, and then in 2014 you open a restaurant. Like what happened between that driveway conversation
Right. You can't-
and the restaurant opening?
There's not like, New York City, there's the French Culinary Academy
Right.
or there's the CIA where they're teaching, these European techniques and stuff like that. Where do you
Yeah.
learn Russian?
You don't.
Or
am
I saying Russian? Am I
Yeah,
right to say Russian?
Post-Soviet.
So
Post-Soviet food.
I always say at the beginning of a conversation that you should just put an asterisk on the word Russian because it does mean a bigger world in a way. And so I just want to know, when I say Russian, I mean basically the former Soviet Union in the context of Kachka.
That's
Yeah, and I think most people do, but it's important to recognize that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm born in that era, so that you say me Russia, it's
exactly.
that whole huge
Right.
basically continent.
And the time stopped when my parents immigrated for our understanding of that part of the world, because when they left, it was a much bigger place. And so when I think about it, it's in the culinarily, it's in the context of a bigger geographic region. Anyway, what were we saying?
I'm politically
where do you
incorrect.
even learn how to cook that kind of food? I went to the CIA a long time ago, and that's actually a big frustration, is that it is very French centric. Forget about even Asian techniques or other really large, well-known modes in cooking. They don't even. Yeah, it's French centric, and I think they're moving away from that a little bit these days. But it made me think when I first got out of culinary school, I thought I could fix the food I grew up eating. I remember this one instance when I was visiting my parents, and there's a dish in Russia called холодец, which is basically like meat aspic. And you just take calves' feet and shanks and things like that, cook them down for a long time in water, and then you pick the meat and the gelatin and stuff, chop it up really finely, put it in a tureen, pour the liquid over it with a bunch of garlic, and let it set. And it's very, very rustic, and it's essentially meat jello. And I thought, I know, I can fix it. I'm going to turn this into this like insane consomme-based aspic tureen. I'm going to clarify it, put a bunch of inlay in it. It was like gorgeous, right? And we had a big family party while I was there, and I made this my version, my like Frenchified version. And I just remember looking around the table and like seeing all of my aunts and uncles and cousins and stuff kind of like sort of silently eating it and nodding and probably thinking to themselves like, how much are they paying for her to go to culinary school? What is this? This is terrible. Because it might have been technically correct in some sort of formalized French way, but it had lost all of its soul and flavor and spirit in doing that. But that was at the time what I thought the food that I grew up eating needed, was to be Frenchified, and that would fix it. And it wasn't until later when Israel and I were dating and I was realizing like, oh, there was something, it was me. I needed to be fixed. Like there was something wrong with the food. Just like cook it the way it's supposed to be made, season it properly, use proper ingredients, but it doesn't have to be fixed,
So these are recipes that you've learned from your grandparents, from your parents?
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's what makes this restaurant so special. It's home cooking.
Yeah, there's a mix of things going on here. Sometimes there's a technique that we might use that is picked up from somewhere else as an inspiration point here and there, but in no way is it meant to like fix something that was broken. It's more about applying my lens and the way I think about food than it is about trying to correct something that was done incorrectly.
And just focusing on a quality raw material and the ingredients, which really will help elevate.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So why did you want to talk about charcoal?
So many reasons. So in the larger culinary world that is Russia, there's a whole grilling cuisine that comes from the Caucasus and Central Asia. They use a grilling box called a mangal, which is basically a narrow, skinny opening for skewer cookery. And this is huge all throughout the region. So much so that my dad talks about New Year's Eve is like the biggest holiday in the former Soviet world because they got rid of Christmas for religious reasons. And so they kind of like turned New Year's into Christmas. So it was like this huge, massive holiday. Anyway, so your absolute favorite, most like exciting things. And shashlik, which is skewer cooking, has always been so popular and so important that even on New Year's Eve they wanted to like grill, but it's also like really cold there, as you know. Mm-hmm. So it was like the coldest winter on record that my dad remembers, and he describes being out on their tiny little balcony in their apartment in Minsk and grilling skewers on a mangal, and it was so cold that on one side, the upside, the skewers were freezing over as the other side was cooking. But it was like so important to it's so central to them. But anyway, so obviously, as I just described, we had to have shashlik on our menu in some fashion. In our original space, not this one, it was tiny space, tiny kitchen. And we decided, okay, in the summertime, we will take one of these mangal grilling boxes and put it up on top of our range, like replace two of our eyes with this and just cook on top of it. You may not know this if you don't know anything about building codes and fire codes, but you can't grill charcoal in in a mixed hood. It has to have its own separate hood, at least in Portland. And so what we were doing was incredibly illegal and highly dangerous. However, I knew that grilling with a Binchatan style charcoal would keep our hood cleaner, which would make it a lot less likely that we would end up burning the place down, which you don't want to do in your first few years. You don't want to do that ever. And so we were totally illegally grilling on top of our range using Binchatan because we felt like we could do it. And Binchatan is really hard to come by, really expensive. Except that Andy Ricker, was here in Portland, had just started selling this rambutan-based Binchatan charcoal that he had started using for Pak Pak. And it was just so fortunate that he happened to be producing it right when we had started. So we opened using that, and it was a lifesaver, but it's also an amazing material. It's burns forever. It's super consistent. It's like the perfect charcoal. So I can't live at this point. There was during the pandemic, so many things had issues. There was a moment where we were not going to be able to get charcoal, and it was like panic moment. We're like, what are we going to do without this Thaan charcoal? It's like the one ingredient that like we would stop everything for. So I'm rambling. I don't know what specific you want to know, but
yes, exactly what we want to know.
I mean, there's a lot of lessons here. First is if you're a young chef and you can't get a license for wood burning, go ahead and use this because it's clean and smokeless.
I did not tell you to do that.
I love the part. What's the preferred meat that they were using in Minsk back then? Is it a beef?
Beef or lamb?
Beef or lamb?
Lamb,
yep.
Yeah.
We were talking about on the way here. I didn't know that grilling was so important.
No, I had no idea.
We were, kind of joking, but not joking. I'm like, it's freezing there. Like, are they doing a lot of grilling? But
you make it work.
And then I was worried that Bonnie was going to tell us that to make it really authentic, they were going in the walk-in freezer with the...
What's interesting about the former Soviet Union is that there's a lot of cross-pollination across basically, a fifth of the world landmass when it was in its full size. So you have, a lot of interaction with, let's say, my dad. The story that it made me think of was my dad was on a bus with a bunch of folk. It was like a work trip or something, and there was somebody from Azerbaijan in their crew. And so they were, I don't know where they were driving, but basically they had the bus driver stop the bus to get some meat, and they got a trash bag and marinated this meat on the bus. And when they got to their final destination, this Azeri dude started built a Mongol out of rocks or whatever, in the middle of the forest, and they had an impromptu barbecue. And that was my dad's first exposure to this kind of cookery. And so then he obviously took that back and he did his own stuff in our family, but that happened all across the former Soviet Union. So that's how you get places that are traditionally quite cold, having more of this barbecue style cookery that you wouldn't have expected. It wouldn't make sense geographically. That's how that happened. So it is weird, but it totally makes sense when you know the history and the culture.
Have you gone over there to see how restaurants and traditional food is being made firsthand?
Absolutely. We try to make a goal of going at least once every 2 years to somewhere thereabouts. And this last year, we actually got to go to Uzbekistan with some of our management, which was really, really amazing and fun, and learned all sorts of new thing was there's a sport called buskashi, which is very popular in Central Asia. And it's sometimes people call it goat polo or lamb polo. And it's because it's a bunch of dudes on horseback with basically they use a goat as a ball, but which sounds really grotesque, but it's not. It's actually a very beautiful process because they, in sort of running around, dragging around, kicking around this goat, they tenderize it. And then the winner of the buskashi match takes it home and barbecues it.
Okay, it's not a live goat.
Oh,
no.
Okay. I was picturing a live goat.
It was, and actually they raise these goats for the sport specifically. It has to be the best, the most well taken care of, most beautiful goat. And then this is its royal treatment, essentially. It gets honored in this way. And then somebody, the winner gets to take it home and eat every last bit of it. And it's been tenderized in the act of the sport. So at first, when you think about it, you're like, oh my God, how horrifying. But it's actually quite a beautiful process and creates a really delicious dish.
That's cool. I think this region of the world too, I have a friend who's a wine writer and she's deeply immersed in wines from Georgia. This is kind of the origin of wine is that part of the world. And the origin, whenever we think of wine and food together, there's deep history in the food of that region.
Absolutely.
And I'm sure that it's something that you often are looking at and learning.
Yeah, actually. So Georgia, very proud Armenians will actually tell you that Armenia is the birthplace of wine now because they found a Rennie 1 cave to have even older source information to say there was winemaking there. And so they talk about between Georgia and Armenia, they're like, no, we were first.
Yeah.
But either way, very much ingrained in that part of the world and have really, really deep food and wine traditions that are amazing and delicious.
Shifting a little bit, but the horseradish vodka that they make here is spectacular. That's the thing that I'm thinking about. And now are you selling it now?
We are. We're working with Martin Ryan Distilling, which makes Aria Gin here in town. They're just across the river. They produce our horseradish vodka on our behalf because they know what they're doing. And a bottle for us available in Oregon right now. We are working on getting to a few other states.
That
hopefully
sounds so
by the
good
holidays.
With smoked salmon or
Caviar.
dare I say caviar.
Oh, absolutely, with caviar. People always talk about sparkling wine, champagne being the perfect caviar pairing. It's not. It's weird, actually. I mean, it's not. Don't get me wrong. Champagne, delicious. Caviar, delicious. I would love to have both of those things at any time. And if you made me have them together, I would. But if I had a choice, I would have it with vodka. And horseradish vodka, delicious, like great flavor profile, but really any really nice cold vodka is the best caviar pairing.
And there's
Yes.
vodka flights here. That's what I experienced last time, which was amazing. I am kind of like I drink one type. So to kind of experience that, I felt like when I came here, I was stepping into a world that you don't really get to visit very often. And it was a really special kind of like memorable thing for me. So I'm just glad that we're sitting here and having this conversation. So,
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other uses of charcoal in the restaurant other than the skewers?
Yeah.
I mean, we have a mangal set up in the kitchen to use for a variety of different purposes. We do skewers. We also do a lot of flatbreads on there. There's something called the lipioshka, which is basically literally like a hand smashed bread. It's sort of like naan. So we grill those to order on our charcoal mangal. And then there's also a bunch of different stuffed breads from Georgia. We always have one example on our menu at any time. And so at the moment, we're doing one that has lamb in the center, like ground lamb. But a lot of times we'll do them with bean as a filling, or the one that most folks know is something called khachapuri, which is a cheese bread. And there are a few different forms of those, but the one I think most folks are familiar with is an ajari style, which is like an eye shape. Mm-hmm. And there's like a raw yolk on top with a pat of butter that you stir all together before you eat it. So we'll have that sometimes. But all those things we do using the charcoal as well.
Is Kachka your only restaurant? And do you have plans for any more?
Good question. We had a bar at our old location pre-pandemic. Our lease came up for renewal in the middle of all this, and we just decided to not renew, which was kind of a good thing in a way, because it felt like I always felt like I couldn't devote enough attention to one of them, and I love just really seeing this through. But now I feel like we're starting to get a little bit stir crazy. That's the wrong word, but a little bit more interested in sharing what we're doing with other folks.
Would you recommend starting a business with your partner, with your husband, with your wife? Were you in the kitchen together when the restaurant started?
No, he's a front of house person.
Okay.
I'm a back house person. So we have our domains.
Yes.
But we've both. So Israel, my husband, actually went to culinary school and has worked a little bit in kitchens. And we actually met because I was venturing into dining room work and I wanted to learn more about wine. And so we worked together front of house at a restaurant. So we both know just enough to annoy each other. Get in each other's way, ask annoying questions.
Yeah.
Which I think is really good, ultimately, because we can hone each other a little bit, keep each other on our toes. I think when either when there's like a partnership in the kitchen and there's no one in the dining room, or where there's just one person and they have to hire in the other part, I think that those can be more challenging. I think it's nice to have each other to balance out and make sure that both parts are sort of in check and in balance, because that's, I think, the only way that a restaurant sings is, when you really truly appreciate both parts.
Yes.
But not to say that it's all perfect and we never fight.
Yeah, never.
It's really good, but of course, we always take work home with us and all of those good things.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of home, one question that we ask every guest are, what are the 5 pantry staples that you have to have in your home at all times?
Wow. Well, sunflower oil is a must, and I mean like a really nice toasted sunflower oil. Absolutely. I'm trying to visualize my refrigerator and stuff right now. I will say one thing that I don't know if it's good or bad. We hate having things sitting in our pantry. I hate a large pantry. I think people forget that things go bad.
Yeah.
It drives me crazy when I go to my parents' house. Sorry, Mom. And there are like 5 unopened bags of walnuts that she got at Costco. And I'm like, Mom, those are going to go rancid before you use them. So I think I have like an allergy to that. And we actually intentionally don't really stock anything. Everything's sort of moving and mobile. I think a really good chili of some sort, regardless of what that is. Right now, I'm a little bit spoiled because we got back from Uzbekistan and I brought like a kilo of this like I don't know what it is. I need someone to tell me what varietal of chili this is that I got, but that's our current like flake that we use. It's like so soft and delicious, but something in that heat realm always. I love Banyuls vinegar, so I pretty much always have some of that. And the minute it runs out, it gets back written on the board to have more. You have to have eggs.
Yeah,
sure.
I mean, have to have eggs. That's 3, 4. What did I
Four.
do so far?
One more.
Oh, geez. I guess I always have ice cream in my freezer.
Love it.
What
Glutton
kind?
for ice cream.
Is there a brand?
I really like McConnell's, which is from Santa Barbara. They don't have any stabilizers, which some people might think creates like an icier sort of texture. I actually really love that because it feels real to me. I can really tell when there's a bunch of stabilizers in ice cream, and it might at first seem, this is so luscious, but it just feels fake. To me personally, and I specifically like their peanut butter. It's like double peanut butter chip or something like that. Or when it's in season, their peppermint stick.
It's a great ice cream. We're depraved of that on the East Coast, but
There's
some
plenty
good
of delicious
ice
ice
cream
cream
on the East Coast.
Yeah.
but McConnell's is great. I want to go back to the first one you said though, which is sunflower oil, and you're not talking about the mass-produced, sunflower. I've only had it a few times in my life where it actually tastes like almost like toasted or roasted sunflower seeds. Where do you get that?
That is
It's not a common item.
It's a tricky question right now because I would say Ukraine, but that's a little bit difficult.
Yeah.
Georgia also.
Yeah.
Both Georgia and Ukraine produce delicious sunflower oils. They are virgin pressed.
They're so delicious. When I've only had it from Italy in my life, where you open the bottle and it is the flavor of eating a roasted sunflower seed.
It's essential. So, people I think what's interesting is that olive oil, at some point became this like cooking oil. Like it's like generic sort of like, oh, that's what I keep next to my stove. And I use that as my cooking oil, which can be, but it's also not necessarily for that and also isn't always appropriate. And so
it has a really low smoke point. So like for searing, I always am using a more neutral oil, like a grapeseed or something that can withstand the cooking.
Yeah. But refined sunflower oil that actually has a higher smoke point. And for me and the cuisine that I work with is specific to, the part of the world that I cook from.
Sure.
And so I've found just by replacing a generic oil or olive oil for cooking with sunflower oil, it adds it feels like there's a little bit more like terroir to the cooking, but then having a finishing oil like a toasted sunflower oil for me is so specific to what we do. And so for me, it's essential. But I think for folks who aren't familiar with it, it can really create a whole new flavor world because it's something that I think a lot of people aren't used to because they're so used to olive oil being the sort of finishing oil for salads. And I think if you try sunflower oil, it'll blow your mind.
Yeah. That's a great thought because the oil is that foundational flavor for so many types of cuisine. What is butter used in the cooking? Is it, and this obviously the seed oil?
Yes. A lot of butter. I would say in general, fluid dairy. It's interesting because usually in places where they have a lot of dairy, there's a cheese making culture as well. And you see that in France and Italy and Spain. But for some reason, in the more northern climates, you don't see a which is interesting because you would think you would need to preserve better. So I don't know. I'm not, a culinary ethnologist or whatever, but I don't know why you don't see as much aged cheese making, but you see so many fresh cheeses, so many different cultured, like kefir, sour cream, quark, or farmer's cheese, and different versions of those. And very minor variations all throughout the former Soviet republics, and then also going into the Nordic countries as well. Also, all forms of yogurts, and so that almost I tell people a lot of the time for what we do, sour cream is a mother sauce because that's how heavily sour cream is used. It just flavors everything.
Yeah. Another question that just came to me now is, you're a great supporter of our company here in Portland, Provista Specialty Foods. We don't have many products from that part of the world, from the former Soviet states. Was it a challenge for you to find the types of ingredients and foods that you were looking for? Like, how did you do that?
Good question, John.
That is a good question, and yes, that is a huge challenge. There is a pretty large population of immigrants from the former Soviet Union here in the Portland metro area, and so there are a few distributors around that specialize in those imports.
Right.
A lot of them come from New York. There are some that are direct imports, but mostly it's distributors. And but that being said, it does limit our options. A lot of the times they're buying sort of the largest conglomerate companies' products, and so it can be sort of like shopping from just ConAgra here or something like that. You know, there's not a lot of option. But we're a scratch kitchen, so actually we do need some things, but most of the products that these suppliers have, we actually don't need, because we're just working with raw staple ingredients. Like, for example, sour cream, we make our own, so we just need really good cream.
Yep.
Which we can get anywhere. I mean, maybe not anywhere, but in Oregon, we can get really delicious cream. And so there's a little bit less of an emphasis that we place on with those, but that's not to say that there aren't things like really delicious sunflower oil, which we get from a Georgian distributor in New York. There's buckwheat's really important. That's actually a big challenge right now. This is a really sort of geeky fact. Buckwheat grown in the United States, by and large, is actually grown as a cover crop first, not for flavor or texture. And so when you buy, sorry, Bob's Red Mill, I love you guys, but when you buy Bob's Red Mill buckwheat, it is horrible. It's like, if that's all you've ever had for buckwheat, then you have not actually had buckwheat, because it is not really, it was never grown for that purpose. It was grown as a cover crop first, and they're like, oh, we'll sell this grain as a little extra.
A byproduct.
Yeah. So when you buy buckwheat from Russia, and these days that's pretty hard to come by and not necessarily something you want to purchase. But that they do, that it's grown there for flavor and texture, and it's grown in the Altai Mountains, and it's a delicious product. So that's actually one of the things. What are you
using it for?
The blini, I bet, right? Oh my God.
Yeah, for blini. You just cook the groats, use them as a grain like you would rice or something like that. We've sort of stepped away from doing that right now because we can't get a good product. So there's just not a lot of that in the US. So stop growing it for cover crop, make it delicious too. Yeah, so that's kind of a challenge right now. So it's not to say that we're always successful in getting the products we need from other distributors, but we make it work where we can. Yeah.
Nice.
Love it. Well, thank you so much for inviting us into your beautiful restaurant. This has been fascinating. I've learned a lot. And Andrea, do you have room at your table for me tomorrow night? Because
it's really up to Bonnie.
Oh, she controls the book here, huh?
It's like an extension of our home. There's always room for more.
Oh my God.
Thank you so much.
It's been great.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Thank you.
Cheers. We are with Toby Roberts from Thaan Charcoal, this amazing hardwood charcoal that, we do so well with this product here in Portland at Provista Specialty Foods. Bonnie from Kachka absolutely loves it. She loved it so much that was the only ingredient she wanted to talk to us about.
Yeah, she said it was so integral to her business that, back years ago with like COVID and supply chain stuff, when there was any lapses, that was the item that they panicked about most because it's vital to her restaurant. So welcome. And
yeah, so nice to have you here. So what is Thaan Charcoal?
Thaan Charcoal is, first of all, so flattering, so honored. Bonnie is definitely a hero of mine. I love Kachka. So it's really nice to hear that it's an important part of what they do. So
great. Andrea had dinner there last night.
I did. It was amazing. Oh,
yeah. So
she didn't invite me.
I need to make it back for sure.
What do I need to do to get invited to dinner with you?
We're gonna go out tonight, John.
Okay. There you go. So Thaan Charcoal is a very premium charcoal. What makes it special is that it's an extruded charcoal. A lot of people are familiar with a briquette, like a pillow style briquette or lump charcoal, which are great products. But for a food service establishment, a restaurant, they're not great in many ways. They don't burn very long. They're kind of messy, especially the lump charcoal can be very messy. Lump charcoal can kind of pop and sputter and spark. And that was a problem that we had in restaurants. Commonly when Thaan was launched, I was with Pok Pok Restaurants at the time. We were using a lot of charcoal, but it was very messy. So we started looking for a better option and ended up finding this and making this extruded charcoal, which is a charcoal that is first you carbonize a wood. We use rambutan wood, which is a fruit very common in Southeast Asia. It's an orchard scrap, which is nice because it's a sustainable product.
And you're holding a piece of it. It's almost like a mini log.
Yeah.
Almost like the Japanese binchotan.
Yeah,
Is that what it's called?
Very similar in form and function to binchotan. So the wood is carbonized and then it's extruded through a mold under very, very high pressure. So the charcoal is very dense and it burns for a very long time, like 4.5, 5 hours, which is perfect in a food service setting when, you may start your fire at 10 in the morning to start doing some prep and burn until end of service at 11 p.m. So the longer this stuff burns, the less you have to feed it, the less you have to fuss with it. And that is really the main benefit. It's much easier to use, more
What about
consistent.
the shape? I know it's very different from, I don't think, if someone was looking at it, I don't think they would know that it's charcoal. So how did you guys come up with that shape?
We call it a log shape for lack of a better way to communicate it. Sometimes people think we're talking about a fire log, but the shape comes from the extrusion process. It's, like I said, it's forced through a mold in a continuous process and then cut to length, however long you want to cut it. And it's got a hole through the middle, which helps with airflow, circulation, helps keep everything really consistent. The temperature is really nice. It burns very hot, but it also burns very consistently hot, which is important, again, in a restaurant. Like a lump charcoal will kind of spike in heat at the beginning. Burns really hot, it's nice, but it loses heat fairly quickly. Thaan charcoal will get very high and then kind of plateau at a high temp for hours.
So you get this kind of maintained even heat for about how many hours?
4.5, 5 hours.
Oh, wow.
Often it'll sort of shrink as it's burning, but the nice thing is that you'll still get that heat. You'll still get 1,000 to 1,100 degrees Fahrenheit.
Does it give off a lot of smoke?
Doesn't, no. The only smoke really that you'll see with the extruded Thaan charcoal is drippings from whatever it is you're cooking. So no smoke,
clean.
really no flame, no sparks, just clean, even, high temperature.
You touched upon the sustainability piece and you kind of went quickly, but I think it's important to talk about. You've chosen the rambutan, I guess, to help with sustainability. Can you talk into that a little bit more and what's out there and, what chefs should be looking for?
Absolutely. We use rambutan. It is a hardwood. It's a fruit wood. So hardwoods are always going to make better charcoal. It is orchard scraps, so trimmings from rambutan trees that happen during the commercial process of harvesting or trimming. And so other charcoals, for a long time were using like mangrove, which is important for like deltas and sort of, it's an important riparian tree species, but it also makes very good charcoal. So we wanted to avoid a product that is very important to certain habitats. And it's the perfect balance because they have to do something with this wood scrap. They likely would just burn it if it wasn't made into a value-added product.
That's awesome.
So the bad production of charcoals around the world is happening from mangroves and it's taken away from
Mangrove or white oak, which is a slow-growing tree. They make charcoal out of a lot of different woods, and it varies really in how sustainable or how impactful that is on the environment. We also want to work with tamarind, which is another sort of global harvested product. And so as we consider products, we consider the environmental impact and make sure that it's not forested. It's more of a byproduct.
You're not hurting the earth in creating this product.
I love that this product came out of the Pok Pok restaurant empire, so to speak, that it's made by chefs, for chefs. What year did you guys launch this?
It's been a while. We started in 2014. Again, we were using a lot of charcoal. Pok Pok restaurants use charcoal in many, many different ways, from our commissary in prepping items all the way through service. So charcoal touched so much of the food that came out of Pok Pok. And 2014, we tried a lot of charcoals. We wanted it to come from Thailand. We wanted to support a Thai business and work with a Thai manufacturer. Lots of varied quality samples came from there. And we landed on this because, again, it was just the best charcoal that we could find, and it had this really awesome sustainability component that was really important to us.
So for a restaurant that wants to buy this product, what size formats does it come in?
The food service standard pack is 10 kilograms or 22 pounds, and the logs themselves are about 2 inches in diameter and 6 inches long. So they fit nicely in Conroe grill, which is a very common grill for restaurants to be using, those kind of fire brick ceramic grills that fit nicely and surreptitiously under your hoods. Mm-hmm. And then there's also a sort of more of a retail pack, which is still great for food service, but it comes in a 5-pound box, and it is 2 inches in diameter by 4 inches long, so a little bit shorter.
Yeah, I mean, this is a great item for restaurants that are using, if they're using hardwoods and charcoals, it's a great thing to convert to. As you mentioned, those bags, I saw the bags here in our Provista warehouse. They're just, you don't have to stack anything up. They come ready to go.
Yeah.
And I feel like wood-fired stuff, wood-fired restaurants, there more and more kitchens are going to the natural, rather than using gas.
From a sustainability perspective.
Absolutely.
So I'm sure you guys are seeing a lot of growth with that.
A lot of growth, yeah. Food cooked over live fire just tastes better. It's just a fact.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
What are you holding?
I'm holding a new product for us. So 2014, we've been running this and offering this extruded log charcoal. Just in the last couple of months, we have introduced a really amazing lump charcoal, which is, again, maybe what people are more familiar with. Kind of a workhorse charcoal, not, it won't burn for 5 hours, but it is a mix of oak and mesquite woods. We take this to a higher carbon content than a lot of the lump charcoals that you'll find on the market, so it doesn't spark and pop and sputter quite as much as some of the other items that you'd find.
It almost looks like a burnt log. Like, it doesn't look like a typical lump.
It's very natural looking. Some of the lumps are actually like full rounds of a branch, and our manufacturer works with the government to identify specific trees, like tree by tree, that should be used for charcoal based on fire safety or safety otherwise, or a strategic plan.
And where is that produced?
This is produced in northern Mexico in Nuevo León, and that's our new product. We're really excited about it. You all have helped us get it into new seasons, so it's available at new seasons, and
Great.
we're starting to also get it to chefs and restaurants because a lot of wood-fired restaurants, like if they are using cords of wood, really nice flavor from the wood, but also a little bit of a pain in the butt and sort of expensive using only wood. So this charcoal is a really nice complement for chefs and restaurants out there that are using wood. You can reduce your wood use by 50% or so.
Here's a confession. I have a gas grill at home, and I do grill a lot. I did a dinner party a couple of weeks ago, and we did use the Thaan hardwood charcoal.
Was this the lamb?
Yes, and I have to tell you, there is no comparison. And even though having a gas grill in your backyard is convenient to, push the button and have it heat up right away, I have made the decision that I am going to get a charcoal-fired grill in my backyard now.
Excellent decision.
Because there is just, I'm sorry.
You can't compare.
There's nothing.
I will
really
say
can't.
that a gas grill has a place, and its place is in lighting charcoal. You put your charcoal chimney on your gas grill, and it'll light it right up.
Great. That's good for me to know. I was actually going to ask you if there was a way that I could put this charcoal on top of the
Don't they
where the
sometimes
gas
do that?
is.
Like you can lay out charcoal
Is
under.
that okay?
I think so.
Especially the extruded, you can put it right on a 6
Yeah.
burner. That's how we do it
Oh.
at Gato Gato.
Oh.
We'll take 4 of the burners, turn them on high with like a cross stack of the extruded log charcoal, and then you're ready to go.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
I think you need a specific hood system. Is that correct?
Well, I'm talking about my
Correct.
home
Like a
use.
Yeah, I don't
That
want you to
is-
smoke out your house, John.
No, I'm saying outside.
Okay.
outside. Well, this has been amazing.
Yeah.
Thaan charcoal, hardwood charcoal, and then also this new lump charcoal. Beautiful product. I had some chicken skewers that you guys were grilling Thai style a few minutes ago.
Amazing.
Oof,
Yes.
they're so good.
Chef Tom from Gato Gato is out there.
So Gato Gato
Grilling
in
those up.
Portland, yeah.
Very tasty.
Well, this is a great product from Portland, Oregon. Thank you so much for working with us here at Provista Specialty Foods. We're so happy to have a product like this.
Thanks,
Pleasure's
Toby.
mine. Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of Ingredient Insiders. You can watch this episode on YouTube and see more behind-the-scenes content by following us. Find us on Instagram by searching @Ingredient Insiders.